Fort Worth, let's make a move. Unique is what we do. Take a seat, be introduced to the lives in FORTitude. Burn the town down, Cowtown, let's dance, interact, meet some new friends. Go ahead, cancel all your plans for the stories you'll remember in FORTitude.
Welcome back to FORTitude. Today we have a special guest. The man to my left is part of a incredible story we're about to tell. In 2019, news broke of a nationwide college admissions bribery scandal. The sting was dubbed Operation Varsity Blues, which charged 53 people in connection to the scandal. Michael Center to my left is here today and was the head coach of University of Texas tennis program at the time. In 2019, Michael was getting ready for work in Austin to go to practice, and federal agents raided his home and arrested him, took him to jail, where he was charged with accepting $100,000 for helping admit a son of a Silicon Valley venture capitalist to get into the University of Texas under false pretenses. Michael Center was charged with one count of conspiracy to commit mail fraud, as well as an honest source service mail fraud. He served 6-month sentence in federal prison. He was the first coach to serve time, from what I could dig up. So everybody's aware of this scandal, Michael. First off, thank you for being here. I'm really grateful for your time. It's a hell of a story. Tell me, please, first, why are you here?
Well, I'm here because there's a lot more to that story than you just told.
I'm glad you told me that.
There's a lot more to it. And I've actually written a book about it. It's taken me some time. It's been 6 years. I've had my ups and downs the last few years, to say the least, but I feel good now, and I put it down in a book, and a friend of mine helped me put it together, who is an expert at this. He'd actually helped Billy Payne write a book. Mm-hmm. Billy Payne was the guy that brought the Olympics to Atlanta in 1996 and oversaw the Augusta National. Was kind of a well-known guy in the golf world, and so he had the experience of that, and he came to me, and the two of us put this book together. And so I'm here to tell my story, and in large part my story is, I'm telling it because I got to a pretty dark place during the last few years and struggled, but I feel like I've come through it, and I hope that this book and me telling the full details of the story will help people feel like they can overcome things as well.
Yes, indeed. We'll talk about your background and your playing career, your coaching career prior to the University of Texas here in a little while. But first things first, you became the tennis coach at Texas in the year 2000?
Correct.
Let's start there, if you don't mind. You are UT's tennis coach. You're building a program the way that you are. You've been a lot of places, which we'll talk about later, like I said. Let's talk about the story at hand, though. I think it all for you started in the year 2015, correct? You got a phone call?
2014. I'll take you back a couple of years. We played at a facility called Pinnock Allison. Pinnock and Allison were the first two coaches in the history of the University of Texas. I was actually only the fourth coach in the history of Texas tennis, and the history had dated over 100 years. So that's how long tennis coaches stayed at the University of Texas. So I'm going along, I'm in my 14th year, and the building gets torn down to put the Dell Medical School in place. And when they initially put the ballot on the ballot, this referendum, we didn't know that that's where they wanted to build the medical school. No one had told us. No one told the athletic department. So it passes. They're going to tear it down. So in June of 2014, the building is torn down. In 2013, DeLoss Dodds, who had hired me, had been the athletic director there, an iconic figure in Texas athletics, had said, you have $15 million to replace the tennis center. But you're going to have to build it at 51st and Guadalupe, where the intramural courts are, which is about 30 blocks north of campus. So not the best spot to have a tennis center. Well, he leaves. There's this big controversy. I'm sure you're a football player. You remember Texas, Mac Brown, what's going to happen to Mac, what's going to happen here. DeLoss leaves. Steve Patterson takes over. Chris Plonsky assumes a lot of the power in the department, and Mac is fired. And suddenly I get called and told, that $15 million is no more. If you want tennis courts, you're going to have to raise the money. We're not giving you a dime. So that was a pretty tall order for me because we just completed building an indoor facility where we'd raised $8 million. So to go back to the donors and say, hey, by the way, I need another 10 to 15 was not an easy task. We had a donor that pledged $5 million. Poor meetings, was not handled well in my opinion. It fell through. And all of a sudden I get a phone call in the fall of 2014 about a kid that wants to go to Texas and be a manager on the basketball team. The basketball team wants me to help him become the manager. Well, we give partial scholarships. The only way you can get admitted is through a letter of intent. There's a real extensive vetting process. I have no power to admit anyone because they have to approve it. I can recommend someone and been rejected many times for various reasons, but I put his name forth and then we sit down a few months later and I was like, this young man will not play tennis here. He's going to be the manager on the basketball team.
Could he not, real quick, Michael, this kid
couldn't get admitted on his own.
On his own, his grades or whatever it is.
Well, to be admitted to Texas or a lot of these schools, as anyone knows, is very difficult these days. Not that he was a bad student, but as a student athlete, the only criteria you had to meet was an NCAA sliding scale, which meant your GPA had to coordinate with an SAT score, and you had to have a high school diploma and the whole thing. So there was a sliding scale which allowed 99% of the athletes to be admitted. Most athletes at Texas, if they went through the regular admissions processes, are not going to be admitted.
Right.
So that's how we built our programs. So this young man was a good enough student, but he wasn't good enough to be admitted on his own. So with the help of the athletic department, he becomes admitted. Well, there's a compliance signs off on it, academic support signs off on it, the athletic director signs off on it. He has to go back and meet with the compliance. He has to meet with human resources. He's hired as the manager. Well, no one ever says to me, well, how come this guy went from being a tennis player to becoming the manager of the basketball team? Because it was not a secret. Everyone knew. And so he gets admitted. He's going to school. He works as the basketball manager for a couple of years and then goes on his way. As far as I know, I didn't have a lot of interaction with him, but I kind of kept up with how he was doing, and I didn't really think that much of it, to be honest with you, as far as the admissions part.
Can we pause right there?
Sure.
The phone call you got, or the person that brought this child or this kid to your purview, is this Singer?
No, this is a guy named Martin Fox.
Martin Fox, okay.
And Martin Fox was one of the guys involved in this thing, and Martin was a guy that I knew. He was a part owner of a tennis academy in Houston, and I'd recruited players out of this academy. But he also ventured into the basketball world. Was very close with this guy Jay Lucas, John Lucas's son. He coached him on an AAU team. He was in and out of the basketball office all the time, and so I would see him around. I knew him. I didn't know exactly everything he was doing, but we knew each other. So that's who called me. I didn't know Rick Singer from Adam, but I did know Martin, who was a Houston native.
Okay. Who is Rick Singer to you, by the way, at this time?
Don't know him. Don't know anything about him. Never heard of him.
Okay.
So we go along, and then Rick Barnes leaves Texas and goes to Tennessee. Shaka Smart comes in. I get another phone call. Hey, basketball team really wants this kid in. They want him in. So the letter of intent, the compliance knows, academics knows, they know what's going on, they know where everything that's happening. It's unusual. It's not something I'd ever done before, but it's like when you need $15 million or you're going to be playing tennis in a field, which is where we were. We were literally in a field with a porta potty as our locker room.
Wow.
We had a porta potty, and the courts, the fences were so poor and so old they could not sustain a windscreen being held on the fence.
Right.
So we couldn't even play our matches there. We would drive around town to different clubs and different places to play, and I knew we couldn't sustain that. There's no way that we could sustain playing at this facility. Well, he gets in. The father I give the name and the number of the father to the foundation.
The father being Chris Sheppy.
Chris Sheppy.
He's listed in the articles that have come out, so he's a known player in this.
Yeah.
Is if I may ask, his hope is to get this kid his son into school with a little bit of financial wherewithal, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess I can't speak to every situation in the country, but it's not that this has not gone on at schools before.
Sure.
This has happened before. This is not the first young man that some parent has given something to the university that's allowed their son or daughter to be admitted, or nephew or whatever. So it's not perfect, but I also felt like there was not a slot. They were not competing against your son or my son or anybody else's son or daughter to get in. They were taking an athletic spot, but still I can understand why people would be upset because their kid didn't get in and this kid did. That is a very fair argument, and I will not disagree with that.
Right.
But this went on a lot at universities, and very elite universities. And so he gets in. The father, I give the father's name to the foundation. I have text messages. Clear as day and not hiding it, like, you should call this gentleman. He starts to donate. He gives money to athletics. He gives money to the academic side. He's endowing scholarships. He's doing his part. So the university is very happy. No one questions me. No one's like, what in the world did you just do? And so I go about my way. I made some mistakes along the way. Part of the money I accepted, which I should not have done after the fact. It was nothing like, hey, give me this and I'll do that. So I never felt like it was a bribe. I think technically it was a gift, but it was wrong, and I paid the tax.
It's in the form of cash.
Cash. Most of it, a lot of it though, of that 100 went to the university as well. And so I felt like that was a mistake, but it wasn't. There was not honest services fraud, or I didn't defraud the university. I never felt that way. That was just absolute insanity. If you wanted to say, you've got to pay the tax, or you're suspended, or we've got to deal with this, I understand that. I'd never done anything like this, but I was a little desperate. I wanted courts. I'm a tennis coach. I need tennis courts. They called me again. I said, no, I have no interest in this again. And I'm going about my way 4 years later, and feel like everything is good. We have a national championship caliber team, and I get stormed.
This is 2015.
No, now we're in 2019.
2019.
Yeah, so 4 years later, the FBI crashed through my front door.
What was that morning like for you, if you can describe it for us?
Well, we were playing Rice that night, and we had Ohio State on Thursday, and Ohio State was number 1, and we were number 2 or 3. That was our only loss at that point that year. And I felt like at our place outside, we could win the match. So I'm looking at this match as to get ready for that match. And I'm kind of taking my time in the morning, and I just received a text from the USC coach, who is a longtime friend of mine, and I'm responding, and all of a sudden I hear this bashing on my door, like screaming my name. I'm in my underwear, a t-shirt. I run to the door. I thought someone had been injured, someone had been hurt. I needed to help someone. And 7 or 8 FBI agents come crashing through my door. They're blocking the street off. They shackle me at my wrist and shackle me at my ankle. And I have no idea what's going on. And I said, what in the world is going on? And they would not tell me.
Oh, wow.
So to say I was scared to death was, my life changed at that moment, is exactly what happened. I was scared to death, and my life forever changed in that moment.
All right, you're taken in. Please continue in the sequence of events.
Well, you go downtown. They throw me in a cell. They put me in a cell with a young man. I don't know if he speaks English or not, and we're waiting. I have no idea what the charges are. And finally, after a couple hours, I said, are you okay? He said, yes. I didn't know if he spoke English. He said, what are you here for? He said, well, I bought a gun, and the woman I was with, I had a child, She wouldn't let me see my child, and I wanted to kill myself. And I listened to him, and I started talking to him, and he says, I'm in trouble, I'm going to go to prison, because I'd had a previous record, and now I have this gun. And so I talked to him a little bit, and about 5 or 6 hours later, an attorney shows up, a guy named Dan Cogdill, who I have no idea who this guy is, but evidently he's a well-known attorney. He just represented Ken Paxton, I guess, in this stuff. My sister-in-law had found him. He drives over from Houston. He kind of explains to me what happens, and I go.
That's when you were made aware of what?
That's where I was made aware of what happened. I'd been there for 5 or 6 hours. I go before the judge. Some guy stands up and says, the state of Massachusetts requests $50,000. And my attorney goes, we'll give $5,000. Oh, we'd like to give 10%, $5,000.
This is for bail you're talking about?
For bail. So I have to write a check for $5,000 that day. And the poor little guy next to me is standing next to me. He says something to the judge, and he goes right back to prison. So at that point, you hear about all the inequities in the system. That was my first taste of, I have the money, I go home to sleep in my bed. This poor kid doesn't have the money. He goes straight back into prison.
Yes, sir.
So I walk outside, and I mean, I've never seen anything like it before. There were probably 50 people there screaming at me, taking my picture. It was the government, it was organized chaos. They wanted to embarrass everyone as much as they possibly could. I'm like, what in the world what is this story? What happened? Why are all these people here? And one guy came running at me and tripped, and I reached down to pick him up and lift him up. I'm like, it's not that important. You know, do not injure yourself over taking my picture. And I picked him up, and I turned to all these people, and I said, I don't know why you're here taking my picture, but I assure you, if you go to the tennis center tonight, you'll see Texas play Rice. And I don't know where you guys have been all this time, but it's a lot more interesting if you go watch them play tennis. And I went home with my wife. Wow. And I was scared to death. I didn't know what to expect. And then I find out this guy, Dan Cogdale, goes on the Today Show and talks to Hoda Kotb, talks to me and says things. He doesn't even know me. So I'd already given him, I hadn't even given him money yet and hired him. He'd already gone on the Today Show. So I had to.
As your representative?
As my representative, without even hiring. I hadn't even officially hired him, given him a dime or signed anything. And so I have to make a change there. So I have to find a new attorney. And my life is just spiraling. Spiraling as fast as I couldn't imagine that to feel more anxiety. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I start to lose weight. I don't want to go outside. I'm incredibly emotional, and the government.
Have you been let go by the school?
Then the first day I get a call from Del Conte, and he says, you're suspended, and then the next day he calls me and fires me. So I was fired the next day. It was all planned. There's no doubt in my mind they had it orchestrated on how they would handle it.
Did he give you an opportunity to explain, talk?
Nothing.
He had no
interest in talking to me, no interest in any explanation. He just said, you're fired.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I've been here 19 years, and I thought this was my family. And in my mind that day, I still said, there's no way the University of Texas will not stand behind me. Maybe they felt like they had to fire me because they know the truth. They know all the signatures. There's a paper trail a mile long, and so they will defend me. And that was the furthest thing from the truth. They did not stand behind me. They wrote an internal investigation, not an external investigation, that I was the sole person behind all of this. And that was one of the most devastating days of my life, because when you work at a school like that, or you went to TCU and you've got your frogs up or your horns up, and I probably sang the Eyes of Texas 10,000 times. You know, everywhere you go, you sing the Eyes of Texas. Towers lit, bowl games, national championship game, and 2006 with Vince Young, you know, these exciting moments, you feel like you're part of something. And I realized very quickly that I was not a part of it. They started to take my pictures off the walls. They took everything down. They acted like I'd never coached there.
Okay. 2019, how long until you go to court and get sentenced?
So that's the most amazing thing about it. I stood there. I decided to plead guilty.
How long ago after you were?
About a month. I did not believe that I had done the crimes that they said that I had done. I'd made a mistake, like I told you, and I owned my mistake. But I didn't defraud the university, which is why they put me in prison. But I also realized very quickly that this was much bigger than me. This was a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of emotion, and I just wanted to end it and protect my family. That was my only thought. How can I protect my family and my children? I'll take the brunt of this as best I can, but they're not going to touch my house. They're not going to touch my children. My kids are going to go to school wherever they want to go to school. My wife's going to keep going back to work. You can have me, but you can't get my family. And if I had fought them, they're willing to take everything from you. They'll take it all. So I pled guilty, and they said that I'd be sentenced in October. Well, then they said, no, sorry, we're going to sentence you February 4th. So I have these tickets. My family, my friends are going. 3 days before I get an email. No one calls me. No, we've pushed it back to February 24th. So I go February 24th. They're telling me after everything that they've recommended probation. The judge doesn't like the case. He sentenced me to 6 months. I almost fall over in my chair that day. Well, this is February of 24. I have to report April 6th of 2020. We all know what happened in March of 2020, COVID. So everything changes in that 1 month. So if I'd been sentenced earlier, it would have been a lot easier on me. Well, I walk in the door, and
Where are you?
I am. The other thing that's interesting about this is I had requested to be close to my family, and there's a place in Bastrop, which is just outside of Austin. So I have to call this number in Boston. The guy's like, you're going to Three Rivers, Texas. I said, where's Three Rivers? I don't care, and hangs up the phone.
Wow.
So I call Three Rivers, Texas. Nobody answers. I call again. No one answers. 7, 8, 9 times. Finally, someone answers. I have to report on the April 6th. What do I need to do? They've never told me anything. There's no email. They don't tell you anything. Show up. You can bring your wedding band and your glasses. So that's it. If I need some medication, help me sleep, or nasal spray or anything, nothing. So I show up. April 6th. It's hot already, early April. They take me, they do all these tests on you. I backtrack, I walk in, this guy says, welcome to our broken system.
Wow.
That's the first thing the guy says to me. He says, meet our psychologist. He asked me a few random questions. We're going to put you on suicide watch. I said, why? Well, we just want to watch you. You don't need to watch me. I've got a family. I'm going to be here for a few months, and I'm going home. Well, they walk me down this hallway. They run me through these tests, and they walk me down this hallway, and I walk into a cell down in the basement, and I see this brick bed with metal latches attached to the side where they could strap you down. I said, you want me to go in here? I took one step back, and the guy said, if you do that again, I'm going to kick your you-know-what. Don't ever step back, because that means to me you're going to run. I said, I'm not running because I have nowhere to go. But they shut the door. When you go into a situation like that, they literally take all your clothes off. So you're standing there naked, sweating, and they put the lights on. I said, can you turn the lights off? It might help me sleep. No, the lights have to stay on.
24?
24/7. So for 48 hours, there was a little thin mattress, maybe I don't know, an inch thick, that was on top of this brick bed. I pulled it off. I laid it down. I put my feet on the toilet because you could, where the pipes were to help bring my temperature down. And I stuck my face as close to the base of the door as I could so I could breathe, because everything is shut. There's no air. And I did that for 48 hours. And then they moved me to a medium security prison and quarantined me for another 12 days. This was all because of COVID. So I did not see the sun for 14 days when I first got there. And when I walked out, I almost collapsed. I was so dehydrated.
Of that 48 hours?
No, there's 14 days.
14 days.
14 straight days. And I couldn't even walk around a track. Then the George Floyd incident happened.
Right.
They shut everything down again. Then everybody got COVID. They trapped me in a room with 45 other sick inmates for 45 more days, where my meals consisted of crappy bologna sandwiches on molded bread with potato chips.
Tell us about the room real quick. With the 45 minutes.
The room, when they move you to a camp, it's like a bunk bed. It's like there were 4 beds in each little group, and you had a little locker room space that was probably enough to put a couple shirts and a pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize quickly that what you need and what you want are very different. What we think that we need as normal guys, that
sure,
is very different from what you really need to make it through the day. So I'm trying to make it through the day. I'm reading a lot. I'm writing a lot. I was incredibly lucky because most people, when they go in there, they're almost forgotten. They don't get letters. They might send emails here and there. But a lot of the time we were blocked. When you get locked down, is what they call it, there's no email, there are no phone calls. At one point they said no incoming letters, no outgoing letters, and food thrown in a little bag through a door. So 45 of us are trapped in this. I'm in this little bunk room. There's 8 little pods that are here. So there's 8 people times, I don't know, there's about 40 to 45 people in there.
COVID's rampant in there?
Everybody's sick. Everybody is sick.
Including yourself?
Including myself. One point I passed out. I couldn't breathe. But they would not give you any medicine. They wouldn't give you any ibuprofen. They wouldn't give me any nasal spray. I couldn't breathe. And you just have to survive at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
are you interacting with the other inmates?
Interacting with the other inmates.
Are they treating you? Are you getting treated? I mean, are you in fear for your life at any point?
No, I don't think you fear for your life in that situation, because most of these guys, to be at that situation, are at some point they feel like they're going to get out. So you don't get into that camp if you're a mass murderer and you have a sentence that's your entire life or 30 years. But there are some small gangs and there's some people that are controlling certain things that you just avoid certain situations. But I didn't feel fearful for my life or that I was going to get hurt.
They didn't mess with you too much at all?
The guards like to mess with me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because
in what way?
Well, I'm white and I'm privileged. I admit it.
In their eyes?
In their eyes, that's who I was. Mm-hmm. I was the privileged one. There were very few of white people there. Mm-hmm. And this is not to be racist, but I stood out a little bit.
Right.
Most guys there were from the border and they're for drugs. Mm-hmm. And so I was a little different. So they would poke at me a little bit, or, mm-hmm. I said to the guard one time, I was like, is there any way I can get ibuprofen? I had a fever. I was burning up.
From COVID?
From COVID. I'm burning up. And she told me to sit the F down and shut up and leave her alone. So stuff like that would happen.
How did COVID affect you real quick? How bad did it?
I would say I had a medium case to, I don't know how extreme. I started to get these like sharp pains in my abdomen, where I felt like someone was stabbing me in my gut. I had some trouble breathing. I had fever for a few days, but I wasn't to the point where I thought I was going to die or anything like that.
But no medical attention was given to any of
No.
That's a problem inside of a bigger problem, right? That in itself is.
We'd have to
issue.
do a whole nother podcast on all the things that I saw that go on there
Right.
that are troubling.
Okay.
That are troubling. So I'm trying to make it through there. And I mind if I read this?
Please.
So I started to write. I was documenting everything.
Did you have writing utensils?
I had that you could get paper, and I had a little notebook, a small little notebook that I would take notes in.
Mm-hmm.
And I would write letters back to people who wrote to me. And when I was there, and I put this in the book, I wrote 10 things to remind myself every day. I said, breathe, you are safe, it is only time, you will be home soon, look forward, not backward, you are strong and can do this, this is a life challenge, meet it, an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal. You have friends and family waiting for you. This will be part of your story. And so I wrote that, and I would read that to myself every day. And the way I dealt with things was I would write letters back to people. I couldn't exercise because we were trapped in these rooms. And I just read a lot of books. I read a lot. And I was fortunate that people would send me books. I was really, really lucky. I mean, when I look back on it, the fact that I had the type of friends that I have, the support that I had, I received over 500 letters while I was there.
And they're delivering this to you daily?
Daily. They would have this guy would come in the afternoon and say, mail call, and people would walk up. And one day I had a stack of 22 letters.
Oh, wow.
22 letters in one day.
So the other inmates are taking notice that you're getting this stuff.
Everybody
right?
sees that they're getting nothing, and I'm getting 22
What is
letters.
their reaction to your special attention?
They're like, I haven't gotten a letter in years. They couldn't believe it, that I was getting all these letters. And so I'd get books, and I would read them, and I would make sure that I would pass them out to other people. I would put them on my bed. Anybody who wants a book, come grab a book. I would get the Wall Street Journal delivered there. And I would take a group of guys, and I'd say, hey, let's talk about stocks. They didn't know anything about stocks. So I'm going to talk to you about the difference between a stock, an ETF, a mutual fund, a bond. Okay? You make your own stock portfolio. Let's check it each day and see how it does.
Class.
I was like teaching a class. And we would sit down and we would talk about it. And I was a stockbroker back in the day, and I love stocks. And we would do that. And one guy said to me, I wouldn't be here if I knew how to read.
Oh, wow.
I said, we're going to learn how to read. So I'd sit down and try to teach him how to read. That one I wasn't as successful. I wasn't as good at, but I tried.
Right.
So I was trying to find ways to do things. And another interesting story is I walked in, there was a little TV room. We were all in quarantine, couldn't go outside, and I would turn the station to watch CNN. That was the news station that we would get. Wanted to see what was going on with COVID, the world, and the little tickers there at CNN to see what the markets were doing that day. And this guy walks in, I walk out, he's walking in, I go back to my bed, and he follows me. And he says, if you ever turn the television station again, you're going to be in trouble. He was part of the group that had the remote. I said, listen, you can watch whatever you want. I don't care. If I'm watching something, come in and change it. But when there's no one in there, I like to watch the news because I just want to know what's going on. But it's your TV, it's your deal, go for it. But I'll stay out of your way, but that's all I'm trying to do. So tried to diffuse things as best I could. So a couple weeks later, I'm actually getting close to going home, and I walk in there, and this guy's been in drugs, and he's had some issues for sure. And I sit down, and he looks at me and he goes, I'm really sorry. Shouldn't have said that to you. I said, it's okay. Everybody's got stuff going on. You're good. By the way, what does that red arrow mean? That arrow that goes up or down that's red or green, what does that mean? I said, well, that's what the overall stock market's doing that day. Can you make money doing that? I said, yeah, you can own a piece of a company, and if that company, it appreciates, you could sell it, and it's more valuable, you could actually make some money. Really? I said, yeah. yeah, you should look into that when you go home about investing and buying some stocks. And that's how and then I left a few days later.
Well, and you served how long of the 6-month sentence?
4.5 months there. Then they sent me, I said to the guy, get to a halfway house, which is designed to help people reintegrate into society.
Mm-hmm.
I just come out of COVID. I walk in, I said, I'm not quite sure why I'm here. This doesn't make much sense to me. I just had COVID. Now you're putting me in a population with a whole new people. I don't need a resume, and I have a house. I have a place to go. Can I just go home and serve my time at home? Yeah, that makes sense. So he calls Dallas, someplace in Dallas, and they call back and they're like, no, he needs to stay there. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason they want me to stay there, these places are privately owned, mm-hmm. and they get funded by the government for the beds that are filled. So it behooves them to have as many beds filled so that the halfway house can make money. So it was all about making money. Gotcha. It had nothing to do with rehabilitating me.
Okay. So ultimately you're released to the halfway house. You serve 2 months in the halfway house?
About 5 weeks, and then I get 2 weeks at home on what they put an ankle monitor on me. Mm-hmm. And so I served every day of that 6 months. Every moment of it.
What did that feel like, first off, to when you finally got out of actual prison? Were you counting your blessings, that kind of thing?
It was a massive relief.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it was like you look up into the sky and you appreciate things that you just had never appreciated before.
Mm-hmm. And while you're incarcerated, are you thinking about all the people? Are you thinking positive thoughts, the list you just read off? Are you thinking about the people that, you've said it, have wronged you in this situation? Are you mad at how it went down once you learned that all these characters involved?
I had some anger. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. I knew that, but it's like anything, if you ask someone, hey, how are you doing? And they keep telling you the same story over and over, and 6 months go by and they're telling you the same story, or a year goes by, you're like, okay, there's only so much I can do or say, and you get tired of listening. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to come home and just be this angry guy that was just complaining about anything and everything. Did I have some resentment? Yeah, there was one person in particular that signed off on it, and she knows who she is, and mm-hmm. and she authorized the whole thing. And if she had said, no, we're not going to do this, I wouldn't be sitting here today with you. But it happened, and in life things happen, and I wasn't in war. I wasn't in Gaza in captivity. I suffered through a difficult situation, and it was up to me now to choose to look forward. It was up to me. I told my players my whole life, get up, keep going.
Right.
It was up to me to get up and keep going.
So you're finally home, ankle monitor off, back to normal.
Right.
What's the next course of your life?
Well, a guy named Steve Kuhn comes and sees me. He says, come help me at this place called Dreamland. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a job. So I went and I worked for him, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. I didn't know if I didn't feel good about being around tennis that much at that point, even though that's what I knew. In the back of my mind, I'm hopeful that I could coach again, because that's what I love to do. But it just wouldn't happen. And so I started to do jobs, and then I started to, another guy called me, a guy named Jack Ryan, who started a real estate company, who's just really looked out for me as well. And I went and worked for him, and then I went and worked for a buddy of mine in Kansas City. So I've done a lot of different things mm-hmm. to keep going. All along, I love to speak. I wanted to give motivational speeches. But I probably wasn't ready to do it either, because I was too emotional.
Sure.
I just couldn't hold it together and get my thoughts mm-hmm. in order to really be impactful. And now I feel like 6 years later, I'm better prepared for that.
While you're away, Michael, all your players, your former players, your current players, are you able to communicate with them? Are they asking about you, checking on you? Is that how
I got
is that?
Letters and letters and letters from people coaches that I coached against, team players that played for me, people checking on me. It was an incredible amount of support.
Were they shocked by what had happened?
Of course, everyone was shocked. No one, anybody that knows me, I think you know David Roditi. I mean, he's one of my closest friends. I mean, when he found out, I was like, "You have the wrong guy. There's no way. This is not possible." And even myself, I'm like, "You have the wrong guy. This is not possible." But I did get involved in it. I just never thought that I was committing a felony. I shouldn't have gotten involved in it. But yes, the people that were there were shocked. But the thing that I found was those people came running through the front door for me. The people at the University of Texas and the people that I thought were my friends, they sprinted out the back door.
Right.
And you really learn at that point, who cares about you?
So you lost some friends over this?
I lost some friends, yeah. I mean, I thought that was my world. I mean, I'm a coach. I go to every football game. I go to the basketball. I haven't been to a football or basketball game. I went to a TCU basketball game this year for the first time in 6 years. First time I've been to an event.
Right.
And so all those people that I thought were my friends, they were some of them. Now I will say, and I'm going to call this out, DeLoss Dodds called me a few days after everything happened and said, "Whatever you need, I am here for you." And that's the type of man he is. Eddie Reese, the longtime swimming coach, I actually spoke to him today. So there were some people there that stood behind me, but for the most part, it didn't happen, and that's okay. You know, that's okay in life. I have plenty of friends. I have great friends.
Right.
My college coach, who's actually David Roditi's second assistant right now, he was very young when I started as an athlete. He called me every single day for a year. My college coach, can you imagine that? Called me every single day for a year until I reported to make sure I was okay.
Wow.
That's pretty special.
Absolutely.
So I had people like that. The Ohio State tennis coach wrote me 20 to 25 letters.
Wow. It's
The
incredible.
Ohio State, a guy that I competed against, trying to play for national championships, called me and wrote me 20 to 25 letters.
Yes,
So
sir.
I had some really special people that stood up for me.
David Roditi, the current TCU head coach, is a friend of ours, a friend of the show's. You hired him at UT when he first got his first job as an assistant, correct?
Correct.
So,
Correct. David was my first assistant at Texas in 2000. So he is like part of my family, godfather to my oldest son. I'm driving his car today. My car's in the shop. I mean, he's been a great friend and supporter of mine. And one of the reasons I'm here in Fort Worth right now, one of the main reasons I'm here.
Before we move on to a little bit about you personally, I think I know the answer, but do you feel like you took the fall for the situation at University of Texas? Were you the fall guy?
Well, there's no doubt that I took the fall. I mean, there were a lot of, if they were going to do this to me, they probably need to get a bus to take everybody else along with me.
Right.
But I don't have a lot of like anger towards the University of Texas. That's not going to help me either, because people love the University of Texas. They love TCU. It doesn't matter what goes on. You're going to keep loving your school. And so for me to go around and have anger and disdain for Texas is not good. There are some people that I think made some poor choices to protect the brand, because the brand is very important to them. And I feel like they will do anything they can to protect the brand, if that meant sacrificing me. But it did hurt, I'm not going to lie, that people that knew me didn't stand up and say, "Hey, listen, we signed off on this young man.
Right.
We knew what was going on. There's a letter of intent involved. There's a vetting process. This is not, you don't just walk into the University of Texas and say, hey, I'm going to be a student today, and I'm going to work for the basketball program, and I'm going to live in a certain dormitory room, and I'm going to meet with compliance and every 3 months, and I'm going to get a paycheck, and that's just not the way it works."
Right.
And but do I sit around and worry about them? No. Was I disappointed in some? Because we all have choices we have to make. I made a choice. I paid severely for it. they made choices they didn't, but that happens in life. You see that happen
Sure.
a lot, and it's up to me now to make a choice to go forward, because I only have so many days and moments left here, and,
Right.
and I want to make the most of it.
Have you ever heard from this Chris Sheppy dad? That, I mean, to be honest, Michael, if he hadn't have intervened in the life of his son and you, this may have never happened, right?
Of course.
I think he has some blame here, but I assume he's never been called
You
into
know,
question, right?
I think he's a parent who was focused on what he thought was in the best interest of his
Sure.
kid. He saw other people doing this, so he wanted to do what he thought was in the best interest of helping his son gain an advantage to progress through life.
Fair.
And so, are we friends? No. Have we spoken? No. They don't want me saying things about them, and I'm not going to say things about them, because I think he was a dad like all these other parents. Like, we're all, and sometimes when you have the resources, people feel like they can do a little bit more.
Sure.
And was it wrong? Yes. Was I wrong? Yes. Was the university wrong? Yes. So the whole thing shouldn't have happened. Rick Singer was the one that was the mastermind who I feel like was manipulating people and things and trying to really make a lot of money. Some of the people that got involved were trying to run it like a business. I just really wanted to have tennis courts.
Yes,
that was
sir.
my whole intent, was I just want to have a place to play.
Yes, sir.
and then once we had Steve Patterson left and Greg Fimbus came in, they said, we're going to build new tennis courts. Now, it took 4 years, but I knew at least at that point that so I'm like, I don't need to raise $10 million now.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about Rick Singer real fast.
Okay.
He's named in almost all the stories regarding you. His name is everywhere in this regard. He served 3.5 years, or at least was charged with 3.5 years
Right.
for his role in this admissions bribery scandal. Did you ever know the guy? You ever talk to him?
Met him one time.
Okay, but his role in this was what?
He was the mastermind behind the whole thing.
Helping
Families,
high privileged families to get their kid into school where
Right.
they wouldn't early.
and he set up a fake foundation and was funneling money in and out of this foundation. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know the guy.
Right.
But now I know this full story. This was going on all over the country, and you saw some of the same thing. The FBI was investigating the basketball coaches. The irony of the whole thing is, the guy that was the head coach at the University of Arizona, I can't remember his name, Sean. He was investigated by the FBI. He says, winning basketball team, they fire him.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they're not going to fire a winning coach in a sport like that unless they feel like something's not good.
Right.
So he gets fired. Xavier hires him. Goes to Xavier, gets a second chance, does a very good job. You know where he's the basketball coach right now? University of Texas.
How about that?
So is that full circle or what?
I would say so.
So the FBI is investigating this guy,
Mm-hmm.
forces him to lose his job, doesn't get convicted, but audio tape is out, and it's pretty obvious what was going on. Goes to Xavier, and now, so these schools, and I think all of them, they will do what they think is in the best interest for them at that moment.
Right.
And for me, the best interest for them at that moment was to put the blame on me.
Yes, sir.
And I just have to accept that and move on. What am I going to do? Fight the University of Texas? Fight the government? That was the other thing. I'm fighting two behemoths here.
Right.
This isn't like you and I are having a little tit for tat over something. I'm going up against,
Yes.
you can't get bigger than that.
Is this part of the reason for writing the book? Because you ultimately want the truth in your mind to be out there?
I want the truth to be told. This book is really about, if you want to know what goes on within an athletic department, there's some stories in there that you would be interested in. But it's really about someone who's going along in their life and they get knocked down really hard. Harder than they could have ever imagined being knocked down. Harder than they think. You're talking to a guy that's claustrophobic. When I went to get an MRI, I could not get in the tube because I was afraid my heart would start beating, that I was going to get stuck in that tube.
Right.
I find myself in a 10 by 10 cell with no clothes on and I can't breathe. So I better get outside my comfort zone pretty quickly or I'm not going to make it.
Yes, sir.
And people have things happen in their family, their jobs, so many things that you will face a crisis in your life. We don't know each other well, but you're going to face something in your life that's very difficult. Either you have or you will. There's just no way around it.
Yes, sir. The book's aptly named Breaking Serve.
Breaking Serve, and it's coaching, a championship coach to prison in my journey back. And so it's really about my journey back, and I want to help people feel like they can come back.
Fair. All right, I promise you we talk about you a little bit prior to all this going down, but and I think it's worth a mention, at least if you would indulge me for a second. You played tennis and you were quite a player. I could talk about yourself and your professional career a little bit.
I was a pretty good college player.
Okay.
I appreciate you calling me a really good player. I was a decent college player. Played in the NCAA championships and was a top 10 doubles player.
For who?
For the University of Kansas.
Okay.
A good singles player. Played 2 in the lineup, and thought about playing more tennis, but decided to go to graduate school. Got my master's in athletics administration and sports psychology. Wanted to be an athletic director. Excuse me. That didn't happen, and I got a call from this guy who now works for David Roditi. Would you come be the women's tennis coach? It's 1989. So I become the women's tennis coach in 1989. And 30 years later, I was still coaching. I took a two-year hiatus to be a stockbroker, but I coached the men and women at Kansas. I was a volunteer at Stanford during that time.
With the legendary Dick
With the
Gould.
legendary coach Dick Gould.
Let's talk about him for 1 second. This man, I mean, I'm not a tennis player at all. I know who this man is. I looked up the stats, but he coached for 38 years, 17 national titles at Stanford. I mean, he's about as big a human as could be in the college tennis world, correct?
He is college tennis. There's only one Dick Gould. He's if you got Mount Rushmore, you start with Dick Gould, and everybody else maybe fills in underneath.
He coached John McEnroe.
Coached John McEnroe. I mean, you could go. The list goes on and on. When I was there, Bob and Mike Bryan were there, who became the greatest doubles team in the history of professional tennis.
Right.
They were freshmen, so I worked under him, and I watched him very closely. So even though I wasn't the head coach or wasn't even, I was just the volunteer assistant, I was watching very, very closely on how he did things. So I learned a lot from Coach Gould. He's an incredible man. And he has a nice quote in my book that I was really happy that he provided for me. That meant a lot to get Dick Gould.
Yes, sir.
To write something to put in your book.
From there, you come to Fort Worth. TCU's legendary Tut Bartson, who's obviously he's not longer with us, but he's a legend in these parts in his own right. But you took over for Tut Bartson, correct?
Well, Tut Bartson, yes. I came in '98 and Tut retired. And not just these parts. Tut was another legendary figure. I mean, this guy was 15-0 in Davis Cup matches as a player. Had coached since the early 70s. I mean, I knew TCU because of Tut Bartson. He was TCU tennis. So for me to come in behind him was an incredible honor. And his wife, Sarah, and they ran the tennis center. He coached the team. And it was incredible to have that opportunity to be behind
and
him.
you lasted 2 years at TCU until the University of Texas comes calling, and ultimately led you to us here today. And what happened? So
yes, so I went to Texas in 2000, and shout out to the family. Coach Snyder passed away. He was a contemporary with Coach Bartson. Excuse me. And I replaced him in 2000 and learned a tremendous amount from him as well. So I was once again really, really lucky. I mean, think about that. I had Coach Perelman, who was my coach, who my greatest mentor other than my family, and is still coaching to this day, a legendary guy himself. Then I work under Dick Gould. Tut Bartson I replaced Dave Snyder. So I had a lot of good people to look up to and learn from.
yes, sir. You have a wife, 2 sons. Assume everybody's well and happy.
I made a commitment to my family that they would continue on, and And it was not to say it wasn't easy, but they've continued on. My oldest son just graduated from University of Wisconsin.
Congrats.
And he's now working in New York at the World Trade Center.
Okay.
Super proud of him. My other son will be a senior. He's an engineering student at Colorado. Has a great internship in Austin this summer. And my wife has been at St. Stephen's for 25 years in Austin.
Nice.
Still have our house, our family. And so like I said, it hasn't been easy. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I feel very fortunate.
Very nice. I don't know what else to ask you in this regard, except you've survived something almost unimaginable. I remember the time in the world when this was all coming to light, and it was a huge story, and it included you. I know you would change things, make them different if you could, but you can't. You seem to have a great attitude about life currently. I think there was one moment in time for you where I think somebody hand you a bag of money? Was it that simple?
Yeah, that was what I'm saying. So the university, they sent checks in for $40,000. This guy shows up. I said, do not show up. This is well after the fact. I said, do not want that. Do not show up. Do not come. I need to take care of you. You helped us out. And at the time, excuse me, my job was being threatened. Not just because we didn't have tennis courts. We had a new regime.
Right.
I would get text messages. I would get berated. It was a toxic environment at the University of Texas, to say the least. And I let it get to me. I didn't handle it very well. If you say anything, you will be fired. Say anything, what do I know? If you release any information, I would get text messages, you effing this. I mean, it was...
Who's this from?
This was under Steve Patterson and Chris Plonsky.
Right.
So the 2-year period after DeLoss, and we all know Steve Patterson lasted 22 months.
Right.
That was another factor in all this, is we had chaos within the department. Absolute chaos. And I was really uncomfortable. So I'm trying to raise money. I'm trying to build the tennis center. I'm trying to do all these things. I'm getting these text messages. And somehow I probably convinced myself that maybe I did deserve a little something. And that was wrong. But I wasn't bribed. I wasn't defrauding anyone. And I gave 80 to 90% of that money to the homeless, to foundations.
$60,000?
Yeah, just gave it away over a 4-year period.
So you never spent it?
No, I had spent maybe 10% of it. I gave it all away. I gave it to charities. My friend had a foundation he set up for helping kids that had brain injuries.
Is it because you felt ill about taking this money?
I felt ill, and I felt like it was the right thing to do.
Right.
I felt like this is my way to help some people. Still was wrong. I don't think I should have gone to prison over all this. But I always want to own the part that I thought was wrong. And I did that, and I don't know why I did that, other than I was really bitter at that time.
Yes, sir.
I was tired of having my job threatened. I was tired of being chastised in text messages, and I just thought it was wrong. That's not how you treat people.
Yes,
I'm trying the best I can. I'm coaching a team. We're top 10 in the country. We don't even have tennis courts. And you're talking to me like this. And so those are the things that led to a lot of my disappointments to some people that didn't step forward and say, listen, we made some mistakes too.
Yes, sir. Well, the book's called Breaking Serve. I look forward to seeing it when it comes out here in a few months.
Right.
Anything more before we get out of here?
No, I have a website called michaelcenterconsulting.com, and I have my email address and my phone number. If anybody's interested in me speaking, I do come speak to teams and businesses, and I'll have information about the book on there.
Very good. Well, Michael Center, I appreciate you being here and talking about this incredible thing that happened to you. I'm sorry that happened to you. I can appreciate what you shared with us, but I'm honored you shared that story with us today.
Well, thanks for your time, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
That's been Michael Center on our episode of FORTitude. Thank you for joining us.
Unique is what we do. Take a seat, be introduced to the lives in FORTitude. Burn the town down, Cowtown, let's dance, interact, meet some new friends. Go ahead, cancel all your plans for the stories you'll remember in FORTitude.